Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is our space within the Aware Leadership Master Series where, well, we really try to cut through the noise and get right to the core of what makes a difference in leadership.
Yeah, exactly.
Those moments, right? That sort of knot in your stomach just before a huge decision.
Oh, definitely.
Or maybe that tension in a team when they're just struggling to find common ground. Or even just, a wave of uncertainty that makes you question your whole approach.
It's pretty universal, I think, for anyone stepping into a leadership role.
Well,
We've all been there.
Absolutely. So today, our mission is really to unpack the bedrock, the essential foundations that let you navigate these challenges, and not just theoretically, but with real, tangible impact.
That's right. And for this particular deep dive, we're zoning in on the foundational principles of aware leadership, specifically those 15 core principles. They're all laid out in Chapter 3 of Volume 1 of the Aware Leadership series.
Chapter 3, Volume 1.
Got it. And the way this body of knowledge frames them is really quite powerful. They're called the heart from which the entire body of knowledge flows.
The heart. I like that.
Yeah. And they're also described as the essential launching pad for all the deeper explorations that we get into across the entire framework.
So without understanding these, the rest doesn't quite hang together.
Exactly. It lacks its core compass, you could say.
Okay. So our goal today isn't just to, list these 15 principles.
No, definitely not.
We want to show how they weave together, how they create this powerful, cohesive framework. And it's not just about getting it intellectually right.
Right. It's much deeper. It's about engaging your entire being. Your intellect, yes, absolutely, but just as profoundly, your emotional intelligence and, crucially, your ethical core.
So we're going to dive into each one. We'll offer practical insights, explore the nuances, and connect them back to other vital parts of the Aware Leadership body of knowledge.
Sound like a plan.
Ready to jump in. Let's start right at the core, the foundation of self-awareness and inner cultivation. Okay, let's kick things off with mindful leadership. That's Principle 3.1. Now, it's a term you hear everywhere, isn't it?
It really is. Almost a buzzword sometimes.
Yeah, and it can feel a bit vague. But the Aware Leadership framework is super clear here. This isn't some passing trend or, a technique you just master once and tick off a list.
No, it's defined as a continuous, active practice. It's not a destination you arrive at.
Right, a practice. And fundamentally, it's about cultivating awareness, attention to the present moment. And here's the bit I find crucial: without judgment.
That without judgment part is key. And what's really transformative about this principle is its ripple effect. It's quite profound.
How so?
Well, when a leader genuinely embraces mindful leadership, it doesn't just change them. It actually changes the whole organizational ecosystem around them.
The whole ecosystem.
Yeah, the framework highlights how this practice fosters a healthier, more trusting, and more responsive team and organizational culture.
Okay, that makes sense. A leader who's present, who can observe without immediately reacting.
Yeah.
That creates a different kind of space for people.
Exactly. A safer space. People feel seen, they feel heard, and this equips leaders with incredible tools to face all those complexities of the corporate world.
You mean like unexpected crises or difficult team dynamics, strategic shifts?
All of that. It allows them to approach it all with, and this is a quote, greater clarity, compassion, and resilience. It's about building this inner strength, this inner calm that actually radiates outward. It stabilizes the environment.
So how does that translate into, your day-to-day leadership? How do you do mindful leadership?
Well, the framework offers a really simple but remarkably powerful practical application. The mindfulness breathing exercise.
Is it breathing?
Just breathing, but intentionally. Imagine you're, say, moments away from a really high-stakes meeting, or maybe you just got some difficult news.
Okay. Stressful situation.
Right. So before reacting, before jumping straight into problem-solving mode, you just take a moment. Inhale for 4 seconds. Exhale for 4 seconds.
Okay. Simple enough.
But critically, while you're doing this, you note thoughts without judgment, ensuring presence and clarity.
So it's not about emptying your mind. I think that's a common misconception.
Absolutely not. It's about acknowledging the thoughts, the anxieties, maybe the biases that are swirling around in there, but observing them from a slight distance, without letting them immediately grab the steering wheel.
Right. Observing, not suppressing.
Precisely. This brief pause, this simple moment of intentional breathing, it helps cultivate a calm and clear mind. It's like a quick, accessible anchor you can drop in the middle of a storm.
And it feels like a powerful antidote to that constant feeling of being overwhelmed or overcommitted or just losing focus with everything coming at you.
It really is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the benefits of consistent mindful practice, they go way beyond just feeling calm in the moment. They profoundly strengthen your emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence. Okay.
Yes. The Aware Leadership Framework really emphasizes that mindfulness deepens your understanding of emotions, both your own and, crucially, those of others.
How does that work?
Well, think about it. How can you truly manage an emotion if you haven't first noticed it? If you haven't identified its presence, its subtle influence on your thinking or behavior?
Right. You have to see it first.
Mindfulness helps leaders recognize those emotional responses as they arise. That little spike of frustration, that sudden urge to interrupt someone, maybe that feeling of defensiveness.
Okay, I can picture that.
And once you recognize it, you can manage it effectively. You prevent those emotions from clouding your judgment, which is absolutely critical when you're making decisions that impact people's lives and livelihoods.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And you mentioned resilience earlier.
Yes. This practice builds incredible resilience and adaptability. When you cultivate this inner strength through mindfulness, you start to see challenges differently.
How so?
Not as these insurmountable obstacles or personal attacks, but more as, well, as opportunities for growth and learning. That's the framing in the text. It ensures you emerge stronger and more capable from every difficult situation.
So you're not just surviving the tough times.
You're transforming because of them.
And what really grabs me is how this directly tackles the sheer amount of distraction we face as leaders today.
Well, absolutely. The modern leadership landscape is relentless.
Notifications pinging constantly, multiple projects, all demanding attention. Just an endless stream of information.
Yeah. Mindfulness directly counters that feeling of being overwhelmed, that tendency to overcommit and, losing focus. It does this by actively cultivating and refining your awareness and your attention.
So it's like building a mental muscle.
Exactly. And the framework isn't just theoretical here. It offers practical tips. Things like intentionally reducing distractions, maybe just turning off unnecessary notifications.
Simple, but effective.
Or even using something like a distraction tracking log. Just noting down when you lose focus helps you identify your personal triggers and patterns. It's about taking proactive control of where your attention goes.
And I can immediately see how this connects deeply with the PREP framework.
You're absolutely right to bring up PREP. That framework, pause, reflect, engage, proceed, it's truly fundamental. It's how you integrate mindful awareness into your actual leadership style, making it actionable.
So it's not just an internal state, it drives behavior.
Precisely. And the pause element in particular is crucial here. That's the mindful awareness stepping in. It's that conscious creation of internal space for clarity.
Give me an example.
Okay. Imagine you're about to fire off an angry email or make a snap decision under intense pressure. The pause is where mindful awareness allows you to just stop, take a breath, really assess the situation properly.
Instead of just reacting on autopilot.
Exactly. It frees you from that autopilot mode. It lets you make more conscious, intentional decisions rather than reacting based on, unexamined biases or preconceived notions or just being swept away by strong emotions.
It's a shift from constant reactive doing.
To a more intentional, mindful being. And that mindful being, that clarity, leads us perfectly to the next principle, cultivating a clear mind, which is principle 3.11.
Okay. So a seamless transition then. The framework actually links these two.
Explicitly. It states that cultivating a clear mind is a natural, almost inevitable outcome of consistent mindful practice.
So it's not just a nice-to-have quality for a leader.
Far from it. It's presented as absolutely fundamental for effective leadership. Think of it like this. For a leader, a clear mind is like having a perfectly calibrated compass. It helps you navigate complexity.
Okay, so what does mind consciousness really mean in this context? How do we actively cultivate it beyond the basic mindfulness practice?
That's a great question. The material uses a really beautiful analogy here. It says leaders are tasked with cultivating their minds and the minds of their teams, much like a gardener tends to a garden.
A gardener tending a garden. Like that visual.
Yeah, think about what a good gardener does. They don't just let everything grow wild, right? They nurture the beneficial plants, they provide the right conditions, sunlight, water, nutrients, and, importantly, they diligently remove the weeds.
Okay, so what are the weeds in our minds?
The framework calls them negative seeds. These are things like anger, envy, fear, resentment, those kinds of draining, unhelpful mental states.
We all have those seeds, I suppose.
Absolutely. Cultivating a clear mind means becoming acutely aware when these negative seeds start to sprout. It's about acknowledging their presence again, that non-judgmental awareness, without letting them take root and completely dominate your internal landscape.
So, noticing the anger rising, but not letting it take over.
Exactly. And then through mindful awareness, you actively work to transform them. Maybe you consciously replace a thought of anger with one of gratitude, or you deliberately engage in calming practices when fear or anxiety arises.
So it's active management of your inner world.
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's what fosters profound mental clarity over time.
And the impact of having that clear mind on, say, decision-making must be huge.
Truly profound. When your mind is fostered by this consistent mindful presence, you gain the ability to see situations with, and I'm quoting again, greater clarity, free from the distortions of unexamined biases, preconceived notions, or overwhelming emotional states.
We all carry those biases, often without realizing it.
We do. A clear mind allows you to peel back those layers, to try and perceive the situation as it truly is, rather than how your past experiences or your current emotions might be coloring it.
You can cut through the noise.
Exactly. This clarity is what empowers you to identify the crucial elements in a really complex problem, to discern what's relevant information versus what's just noise, and ultimately to determine the most appropriate course of action.
Ensuring your decisions aren't just effective, but also aligned with deeper principles.
Yes. It's the difference between sort of fumbling around in the dark versus actually illuminating the path forward.
That clear-minded approach, that inner cultivation, it feels like it naturally leads into this next one.
Yeah.
Overcoming Our Own Unskillfulness, Principle 3.9.
It really does. And the Aware Leadership Framework starts this section by acknowledging something fundamental. It calls it a universal leadership truth.
Which is?
That challenges are not only inherent to leadership that's a given, but that they often stem, perhaps surprisingly to some, from unskillful patterns of thought and action within ourselves.
Within ourselves, not just external factors.
Often the root is internal. And this is a very honest assessment, but crucially, it's also incredibly empowering.
Empowering. How so? Sounds a bit confronting.
Because it shifts the focus away from blaming external circumstances or other people and brings back to internal agency. What can I do differently?
Okay, I see. And here's where it gets really interesting, funny, maybe even liberating. The framework explicitly says that recognizing this unskillfulness is not about blame, it's about empowerment.
That phrase is key. Not about blame, it's about empowerment.
Yeah. It means that when you identify an area where your approach just isn't working, where it's not serving you or your team, it's not some personal failing you need to beat yourself up about.
Right. It's an opportunity.
Exactly. An opportunity. And the framework gives some really relatable examples of these unskillful practices. Maybe you constantly feel overwhelmed by tasks, like you're always drowning in your to-do list.
A classic leadership challenge.
Or maybe you find yourself struggling to connect authentically with your team, leading to misunderstandings or a lack of rapport.
Communication breakdowns.
Or you might hesitate to adopt new tools or strategies, maybe clinging to outdated methods just because they feel familiar.
Resistance to change. These aren't character flaws, are they?
No, that's the point. They're simply reflections of areas where there's potential for growth, maybe in time management, maybe in communication skills, maybe in adaptability.
So by consciously becoming aware of these patterns, these unskillful habits, that's the first step to changing them.
It's the doorway. Awareness opens the door to transforming them into opportunities for growth. And this isn't just positive thinking. It's a deliberate process.
Guided by.
Guided by the core aware leadership factors. Remember those: insight, integrity, and awareness. And also the leadership functions: collaboration, strategy, self-mastery, and technical competencies.
So those provide the compass and the toolkit for making those changes.
Exactly. And this principle ties really deeply into the framework's focus on understanding our mind and developing leadership transformation qualities, which are explored in more detail in Volume 2.
So there's more depth later on.
Yes. Those sections are designed to make leaders acutely aware of the specific mental formations, the habitual patterns, that might be inadvertently holding back their growth and effectiveness.
Like blind spots.
Precisely. It's this foundation of honest self-examination that allows leaders to proactively identify and address what the framework calls challenging mental patterns.
So it's really an inner work journey.
Absolutely. A
Yeah.
journey that directly translates into more effective, more impactful external leadership. The premise is you can't lead others authentically and powerfully until you really understand and start to master your own internal landscape.
Okay, shifting now from that deep inner cultivation to how we actually lead others, we come to compassionate leadership, principle 3.2.
A really important one.
And it's not just about being, nice or being so empathetic that you become ineffective.
No, the framework is clear on that. It presents compassion as an absolutely core element of leading with genuine purpose.
Purpose.
Yeah. It highlights that it's about leading with ethical conviction, compassion, and trust. See how those are linked. Ethical conviction, compassion, trust. Got it. That's a much more holistic approach.
Very holistic. It recognizes the full humanity of the people you lead.
So how do you cultivate that? Is it just something you have or don't have?
Not at all. The framework offers tangible ways to cultivate it. For example, the Heart of Integrity Masterclass, which is mentioned back in Volume 1, specifically emphasizes building relationships that are grounded in authentic compassion.
Authentic compassion, what does that look like in practice?
Well, it delves into the practicalities, things like navigating really tough conversations or mediating conflicts with genuine empathy, even delivering difficult news in a way that preserves dignity and trust.
That's a real skill.
It is. And another concrete example comes from the compassion practices, detailed later in Volume 3. These suggest some remarkably simple yet potentially profound ways to cultivate empathy.
Like what?
Like taking a moment to visualize and consciously send positive thoughts to your team members.
Sending positive thoughts. Does that really work?
Think about the internal shift it creates in you first. Imagine, before a team meeting, just taking 60 seconds to consciously wish each person well, to acknowledge their unique contributions, maybe their hidden challenges.
Okay, I can see how that might change my own state before walking into the room.
Exactly. This seemingly small internal practice can cultivate a much deeper sense of connection and appreciation. And the text says this is especially beneficial in addressing and healing conflicts and naturally promotes a more inclusive approach within the team.
That's powerful. And it feels like it applies not just to how we treat others, but how we treat ourselves as leaders.
You've hit on a crucial point. Self-compassion. The framework emphasizes this strongly.
Why is self-compassion so important for leaders?
Because leaders are often their own harshest critics, wouldn't you agree?
Definitely. We hold ourselves to incredibly high standards.
And when things inevitably go wrong, that internal judgment can be absolutely relentless, debilitating even.
Yeah.
Been there. Aware leadership suggests that to truly lead with sustainable compassion for others, you must first be able to extend that same grace, that same understanding to yourself.
So it starts within.
It does. It means engaging in self-reflection and self-growth without that harsh, unproductive self-judgment.
But it's not about just letting yourself off the hook for mistakes.
Not at all. Self-compassion isn't about avoiding responsibility. It's about fostering resilience against setbacks. It's about learning from mistakes without getting bogged down in debilitating shame. And it actually helps build genuine self-confidence, especially during those vulnerable moments of honest reflection.
So it fuels your ability to keep going and to keep being compassionate to others.
Precisely. It's the fuel that allows you to sustain genuine compassion for others without burning yourself out in the process.
That self-compassionate foundation.
Yeah.
It feels like it flows naturally into the next principle. Authenticity and leadership, principle 3.12.
It really does. There's a strong link. And the framework defines authenticity not just as, being yourself casually. It's much more intentional.
How does it define it?
As a steadfast commitment to aligning your actions, words, and decisions with your core values.
Okay, alignment with values.
Even when it means embracing vulnerability or admitting uncertainty. That's the tough part.
Right. It's easy to be authentic when things are going well.
Exactly. True authenticity shows up when it's difficult. It's about showing up as your true integrated self, not some kind of curated version you put on for work.
That curated self, the work persona, that's quite common, isn't it?
Very common. But the framework suggests that this curated self almost inevitably leads to disconnection. Subtle at first, maybe, but eventually it erodes trust within your team.
So what does this commitment to authenticity actually do for the team's culture, for that foundation of trust we keep talking about?
Well, when leaders consistently demonstrate authenticity, warts and all, sometimes they inherently create a culture of transparency.
Transparency.
A culture where team members feel genuinely safe to express their own uncertainties, their own half-formed ideas, their concerns.
Because the leader models that it's okay.
Precisely. This fosters much deeper collaboration and mutual respect. Think about it. If your leader can admit, I made a mistake here, or I'm not sure what the right answer is yet, It implicitly signals to everyone else that vulnerability isn't weakness.
It's actually strength.
It becomes the glue. The framework says it builds a foundation of trust that is essential for long-term success, and it also ensures crucial consistency.
Consistency, how so?
Your team learns they can rely on you.
No.
They can rely on you to act in ways that genuinely reflect your stated values. It bridges that potential gap between what you say you believe, your intentions, and how you actually behave, your conduct.
It's about walking the talk.
Yeah.
Every single day.
Every single day. And authenticity is so vital. It's actually one of the core components of the overarching AWARE model itself.
It's one of the big five.
Yes. Within the AWARE model, authenticity is defined as leading with integrity and transparency. It represents that unwavering alignment of a leader's inner values and beliefs with their outward actions, words, and decisions.
Unwavering alignment. That's a high bar.
It is, but it's foundational, not just for trust, but for sustainable impact. And as practical reflection for you, the listener, the framework encourages you to do a quick check on your own decision congruence.
Decision congruence.
Yeah. Take a moment. Think about your last, say, 3 significant leadership decisions. How did they truly align or maybe not align with your deeply held personal leadership values?
That's a challenging question.
It can be, because misalignment, as the framework points out really powerfully, doesn't just chip away at trust, it can actually breed cynicism within a team. People start thinking, oh, it's just talk, and that leads to disengagement.
Right. The gap between words and actions is toxic.
Absolutely.
Okay, so from the alignment of authenticity, we move to generosity, the power of giving, which is principle 3.0.
Yes. And again, the framework pushes us beyond the obvious definition here.
It's not just about money or resources.
No, not primarily. It defines generosity much more broadly as the practice of giving time, empathy, and resources to support your team.
Time, empathy, and resources.
Okay. This reframe is important. It's about fostering a fundamental mindset of abundance, not scarcity. Recognizing that often the most valuable gifts you can offer as a leader are intangible. Your attention, your mentorship, your genuine listening.
So how does embracing generosity connect to the bigger picture? How does it impact leadership effectiveness?
Well, the framework suggests it profoundly enhances a leader's integrity. When you are genuinely generous with your time, your attention, your empathy, you naturally build trust and cooperation within the team. It's a natural consequence.
It fosters a different kind of workplace.
Exactly. This practice cultivates a workplace where team members feel genuinely valued, seen, and supported. And that, in turn, demonstrably boosts engagement, fosters loyalty, and really sparks innovation.
Because people feel safer, more connected.
Yes. Imagine a leader who consistently makes time to mentor junior staff, or who listens deeply, without interrupting, when a team member is struggling, or who shares credit generously for team successes.
That creates a powerful positive cycle.
It really does. And it directly counters any tendencies toward self-centeredness or hoarding information or resources. And as you can probably hear, this principle flows so naturally from compassionate leadership.
Yeah, I see the connection. Both emphasize giving, supporting others' growth.
Exactly. Selfless giving and actively supporting well-being.
And then we have principle 3.3, the golden leadership mean. This one sounds intriguing.
It is intriguing. And while the framework maybe doesn't detail this one quite as extensively as some others in this chapter, it's introduced as pointing to the critical importance of maintaining dynamic balance in leadership.
Dynamic balance, not static.
Not static. It's about finding that sweet spot, that equilibrium, amidst all the competing demands and the constant change that defines leadership. It suggests that peak performance isn't found in extremes, but in finding a sustainable harmony.
Okay, so what are the practical implications of trying to find this golden mean in the daily grind of being a leader?
Well, the framework connects it to a few key areas. Firstly, it profoundly relates to maintaining calmness.
Calmness amidst the chaos.
Exactly. The golden mean suggests that a leader needs to actively cultivate a peaceful state of mind amid challenges. That means regulating your own emotions effectively to ensure you maintain clarity and balance even when things are turbulent.
And that projects confidence.
It fosters integrity and builds confidence, yes. Not just in yourself, but crucially in how others perceive your ability to lead through difficulty. Secondly, this balance is vital in decision-making.
How so?
Leaders are encouraged to make decisions from a place of centeredness, authenticity, and profound alignment with values. Remember, authenticity.
Yes, it keeps going back.
It does, and it means considering both the immediate impact and the potential far-reaching consequences of a decision. This helps you balance those priorities that often seem to clash.
Like hitting a deadline versus ensuring top quality.
That's a perfect example. The golden mean helps you find that optimal point where neither is entirely sacrificed for the other. And thirdly, it extends very directly to work-life balance.
The eternal struggle.
Indeed. The framework highlights self-care activities, things like regular exercise, maybe meditation, ensuring adequate rest not as optional luxuries, but as absolute necessities
Necessities for what?
for sustaining a leader's performance over the long term. These aren't just about feeling good personally, they directly enhance your decision-making abilities, they boost creativity, and critically, they prevent burnout.
So taking care of yourself allows you to lead effectively for longer.
That's the essence of the golden leadership mean: sustainable, balanced effectiveness.
All right, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked a lot about the inner world, personal ethics, finding balance. Now, how do these principles translate into driving collective impact, building something bigger with your team and organization?
That's a great transition. And Principle 3.6 is all about exactly that: building a supportive team environment.
Supportive environments. What are the core elements here?
They're remarkably simple on the surface, yet often consistently undervalued in practice. It boils down to fostering an environment where team members feel, and these words are chosen carefully, genuinely connected, respected, and valued.
Connected, respected, valued.
Okay, it's the fundamental difference between just having a group of individuals who happen to work in the same place and having a truly cohesive unit that is thriving together.
So how do you actually build that? What are the concrete practices?
The Aware Leadership Framework lays out some very clear ones. First, it emphasizes communicating openly and truly.
Openly and truly, more than just talking.
Much more. It means actively practicing reflective listening, really hearing, seeking to understand what your team members are saying, not just formulating your response while they're still talking.
That takes discipline.
It does. It also involves fostering a genuine open-door policy. And I mean genuine, not just a phrase on a memo, but a lived reality where team members truly feel safe and unhesitant to approach leaders.
Even with bad news or mistakes.
Especially with bad news or mistakes. Without fear of reprisal or judgment. That's crucial. Second, the framework details the importance of providing constructive feedback.
Feedback. Always tricky.
It can be. But the emphasis here is on constructive, focusing on specific behaviors and their observable impact, offering clear, actionable suggestions for improvement, and crucially, delivering it all with the spirit of support and growth, not criticism.
So it's about building up, not tearing down.
Exactly. It's about creating a supportive feedback culture overall, where feedback is seen as a gift, given with empathy, received as an opportunity to learn and get better.
Now, you mentioned safety earlier. There's something the framework highlights as the absolute bedrock here, right?
Yes. Psychological safety. This concept is foundational.
And it's more than just being nice to each other.
Much more. It's the profound shared belief within a team that it's safe to take interpersonal risks. It means individuals feel safe enough to speak up with new ideas, even half-baked ones, to ask candid questions, to voice concerns, or even critically, to admit mistakes.
Without fear of what?
Without fear of punishment, humiliation, embarrassment, or any kind of retaliation.
Wow. Think about the impact of not having that.
Exactly. If a team member is afraid to share a nascent idea, you might miss out on the next big innovation. If they're afraid to admit a small mistake, that mistake could snowball into a major crisis before anyone knows.
So psychological safety is essential for learning innovation.
Absolutely. For genuine learning, for fostering true innovation, and even for encouraging deep self-exploration and growth within the team. It transforms an environment potentially driven by fear into one driven by learning and contribution.
That's a huge shift.
It is. And if we connect this back to the overarching AWARE model, building these supportive team environments directly relates to a core component: engagement.
Engagement.
The engagement component focuses precisely on building trust and effective collaboration. So, creating a supportive environment isn't just a soft skill, it's how you operationalize engagement. It's the practical day-to-day work of creating the conditions where true collaboration and deep trust can actually flourish. And that, ultimately, is what drives performance.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Next up is Principle 3.7, interconnectedness and team synergy.
Yes. This principle emphasizes that effective leaders need to keenly recognize and respect the systemic, interconnected nature of the organizational ecosystems they inhabit and influence.
Systemic interconnected nature. So seeing the bigger picture, not just your own team in isolation.
Exactly. It's about seeing your team, your department, your entire organization not as a collection of separate silos, but as a living, breathing, interconnected system, where every part influences and is influenced by the whole.
Moving beyond individual contributions to see the collective power.
Precisely. And this systemic view leads naturally to something the framework calls the power of synergy masterclass concept, which is mentioned in Volume 2.
The power of synergy. Sounds impressive.
It's all about unlocking the exponential power of collaborative teams. Exponential power.
So more than just the sum of the parts.
Much more. It's not just about getting people to cooperate and do their individual jobs side by side. It's about achieving something far greater through genuine interaction and integration.
How do you achieve that synergy?
By fostering truly exceptional teamwork, by co-creating shared visions that everyone buys into, and by actively aligning diverse perspectives to drive innovation forward. It requires moving beyond mere cooperation.
Cooperation versus collaboration.
Yes, cooperation might be you do your part, I'll do mine. Collaboration is how can we bring our different strengths and perspectives together to create something new, something better than either of us could do alone.
And diversity is key here.
Absolutely key. Acknowledging and genuinely celebrating the inherent diversity within the team, diversity of thought, background, experience, skill sets. When you do that effectively, the framework says teams can transcend mere cooperation, achieving a level of collaboration that leverages the full spectrum of their collective capabilities.
Like a jazz ensemble.
That's a fantastic analogy. Each musician is brilliant individually, right? But it's their interaction, their listening to each other, their shared understanding of the melody and rhythm. That's what creates the magic. Something truly greater than any single performance.
So what does this look like for a leader day to day? How do you foster that synergy?
It means actively seeking input from everyone, not just the loudest voices or the usual suspects. It means encouraging open, honest dialogue where all perspectives feel valued and safe to express.
Even dissenting opinions.
Especially dissenting opinions. It means genuinely appreciating contributions from every level, every role, and consciously leveraging the team's collective intelligence.
And the payoff.
The framework tells us this directly leads to more innovative solutions and enhanced decision-making. And interestingly, it's not just true for teams. The AWARE model itself is described as having this synergistic nature.
How so?
Its 5 core components, awareness, wisdom, authenticity, resilience, and engagement, they aren't separate pillars. They're described as deeply interconnected and mutually reinforcing.
So they strengthen each other.
Exactly. They work together synergistically, creating a dynamic, holistic approach to leadership. One component fuels the others.
But that raises a question for me. How do you ensure everyone truly feels part of that interconnected system? That their unique voice genuinely contributes to that synergy, especially if they're different?
An excellent question. And that brings us directly to Principle 3.13, inclusive leadership.
Okay. Inclusion.
The core idea here is creating an environment where every member feels comfortable sharing their thoughts and insights without fear of judgment. It goes beyond just tolerating difference. It's about actively embracing and leveraging the diversity of thoughts and experiences each person brings to the table.
Moving beyond just diversity numbers to real lived belonging.
Exactly. It's about belonging. And this commitment to inclusivity extends profoundly to fostering fairness and equality.
Fairness and equality. How does the framework talk about that?
It speaks of cultivating an inclusive mindset, a mindset that actively embraces these concepts, not just as abstract ideals, but as foundational principles for every single daily interaction.
So it's embedded in the culture.
Ideally, yes. It connects to fostering a culture of respect, where individuals honor and uphold principles of integrity, empathy, and inclusivity in their interactions with others. It's not just theory. It's about how every interaction, every decision, every policy is actually lived out in the workplace.
Which means actively listening to those who might have been historically marginalized.
Yes, and ensuring their perspectives aren't just tokenistically heard, but are genuinely integrated into the decision-making process, giving them real weight.
Can you give an example of how this plays out, maybe in performance management?
That's a great example. The framework emphasizes that when an aware leader approaches performance management, the entire process should nurture an environment of compassion and support. It explicitly needs to safeguard against discrimination
Safeguard against discrimination.
and foster a culture that consistently values respect, inclusivity, and ethical conduct. So this principle underpins how you manage, how you develop, how you empower every single individual in your team.
Ensuring every voice matters. Every person can thrive.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the true strength of the team lies precisely in the unique contributions of each member, and the leader's role is to unlock that incredible collective power.
Okay, let's turn now to how these principles help leaders navigate the tough stuff, the inevitable challenges, the constant change, and how they sustain their impact over the long haul. We'll start with Principle 3.5, embracing and leading through change.
A big one for every leader today. Change seems to be the only constant.
It really does. And the framework suggests this starts with a fundamental mindset shift.
Yes. It encourages leaders to present change, even really significant disruption, not as a threat, but as an opportunity for growth and learning.
That's a powerful reframe, from resistance to opportunity.
Exactly. It's about actively cultivating a mindset that views challenges and setbacks not as failures or roadblocks, but as potential stepping stones to success.
Okay, that sounds good in theory, but how does it connect to tangible leadership qualities?
It's deeply, deeply tied to the resilience component of the AWARE model. Remember that one?
Yes, thriving through challenges.
Exactly. The framework shows how things like emotional flexibility, effective emotional regulation, and a strong growth mindset all work together synergistically. It's not just about bouncing back from adversity, which is sort of a passive idea.
Right. Bouncing back implies returning to the previous state.
Precisely. Aware leadership talks about a more proactive stance, one that allows leaders to actively thrive and grow through them, through the challenges.
Thrive and grow through them. Can
Yep.
you give an example?
Sure. Imagine a sudden, unexpected market shift, or a major technological disruption hits your industry. A resilient leader, grounded in this principle, doesn't just survive it. They learn from it, they adapt quickly, they innovate in response, and they emerge stronger, more agile, and better prepared for whatever comes next.
So they actually leverage the adversity for advancement.
That's the idea.
So given that resilient mindset, what's the leader's practical responsibility when preparing their team for change or leading them through it?
The framework provides a pretty clear roadmap here. Leaders must communicate changes clearly and transparently. That's paramount.
Explaining the why, not just the what.
Absolutely. Explaining the rationale behind the shift is crucial for mitigating fear and resistance. People need context. It also involves providing the necessary training, the resources, and unwavering support to minimize disruptions for the team members during the transition.
Demonstrating empathy and foresight.
Yes, and this concept also extends to strategic adaptability. Leaders themselves need to embrace flexibility and responsiveness. They need to be regularly assessing, is our strategy still effective in this new reality? And they need to remain genuinely open to new ideas and feedback.
Even if that feedback challenges their initial plan.
Especially then. It's a continuous, dynamic process of adjustment and learning together with the team.
This constant evaluation, understanding the implications of actions, it feels like it leads us straight into Principle 3.4, cause and effect in leadership.
It does, logically. And while the framework doesn't dedicate a huge standalone section just to this principle in Chapter 3, it's actually a really pervasive theme. It underpins so much of aware leadership.
What's the core idea?
Simply put, it highlights that every single action, every decision a leader makes has discernible impacts, consequences. Ripples.
Nothing happens in a vacuum.
Exactly. There's an undeniable ripple effect to every choice, big or small.
Okay, so what are the ethical implications of truly grasping that?
Huge implications. It connects directly to the concept of ethical decision-making, which is an absolute cornerstone of aware leadership.
How so?
It means that ethical decision-making isn't just about choosing between obviously right and wrong options. It involves thoroughly assessing the full implications of a decision across various dimensions, and it requires balancing organizational goals with the well-being of all stakeholders.
Employees, customers, partners, the community.
All of them. It's about trying to foresee those ripple effects, both positive and negative, and taking responsibility for them, not just the immediate intended outcome. It really pushes leaders to think several steps ahead, considering the entire ecosystem their decisions impact.
And this ties back to authenticity and trust again, doesn't it?
Beautifully. When you consistently align your actions, words, and decisions with your core values, authenticity, you build that predictability and trust. Why? Because your team learns they can rely on you to act in principled ways, understanding the likely positive effects of your principled actions.
Whereas misalignment,
Misalignment, where your actions contradict your stated values, erodes trust almost instantly. The framework is clear. It can quickly lead to deep cynicism. People see the negative cause and effect of that hypocrisy.
we also see this cause and effect thinking in practical things, right? Like feedback loops.
Absolutely. Think about service strategy. The framework talks about the importance of incorporating regular feedback loops. Why? To ensure the services you offer, the cause, remain aligned with customer needs and expectations. The effect.
Driving continuous improvement.
Exactly. It's a clear, practical demonstration of understanding how your actions lead to specific effects, which then allows you to make adaptive, responsive leadership choices based on those observed effects.
Okay, moving on, we have Principle 3.8, detachment and decisiveness. Now, this one sounds like a bit of a paradox.
It can sound that way at first glance, can it? Detached and decisive.
Yeah, how can you be both? But the framework frames this as a powerful ability.
It does. It frames it as the ability to make sound and considered decisions, especially when you're navigating really complex, high-stakes situations. It's about finding a state that enables clear action.
So how does the detachment part work? It doesn't mean being aloof or uncaring, right?
Not at all. That's a common misunderstanding. The framework links detachment very closely to that without judgment aspect of mindful leadership we discussed earlier.
The non-judgmental awareness again.
Exactly. It's the ability to observe a situation and even your own emotional responses to that situation without immediately getting attached to a particular outcome or getting tangled up in the emotions themselves.
So creating some mental space.
Precisely. It creates the necessary mental distance to gain greater clarity. It allows you to try and see the facts as they are, rather than through the potentially distorting lens of your own fear or anger or personal bias.
And that clarity then fuels the decisiveness part.
Directly. Decisiveness, in this aware leadership context, flows naturally from that clarity. It connects back to the proceed stage of the PREP framework.
Pause, reflect, engage, proceed.
Right. After you've mindfully paused, reflected on the situation, and engaged with the options and implications, proceed is where leaders conclude by summarizing agreed-upon actions and ensure everyone has absolute clarity on the next steps.
So it's not rash action, but deliberate action after reflection.
Exactly. It's about acting deliberately and confidently after that mindful reflection, avoiding unnecessary delay or paralyzing indecision, which can often be just as damaging as making a wrong decision quickly.
So ultimately, this principle is about what?
The framework emphasizes that mindful presence empowers leaders to make decisions from that place of centeredness, authenticity, and profound alignment with their values. Remember those words.
Centeredness, authenticity, alignment with values, yes.
It's not about just making quick reactive choices based on surface information or emotional pressure. It's about ensuring your choices are consciously aligned with core principles, promoting ethical conduct and sustainable leadership.
A much deeper, more responsible approach to decision-making.
Yes, it prioritizes long-term well-being and integrity over short-term fixes or expediency. It's about making decisions that you can truly stand by because they're rooted in your deepest convictions.
This continuous commitment to growth, to refinement, to making better decisions, it feels like the perfect lead-in to Principle 3.14, lifelong learning leadership.
It really is. And the aware leadership framework is absolutely unequivocal on this point. Integrating these principles, truly embodying aware leadership. It's described as a continuous one, marked by consistent practice and learning.
So it's never done.
Never done. It's not a course you finish and get a certificate for, then put it on the shelf. It's presented as a never-ending journey of growth and discovery.
And it actively encourages leaders to cultivate a specific mindset here.
Yes, a profound growth mindset. It urges you to continuously seek new knowledge and skills to stay adaptable and relevant in a rapidly changing environment.
Which is essential today.
Absolutely. But it's not just about staying current with industry trends or technical skills. It's also about fostering a vibrant culture of learning and innovation within your team. It's a collective growth.
And this mindset changes how you view failure.
Dramatically. It fundamentally reframes perceived failures or setbacks. They're not seen as endpoints or reasons for blame. Instead, they become integral parts of the learning journey.
Opportunities again.
Exactly. Opportunities for growth and innovation. It transforms setbacks from something to be feared into something to be mined for valuable lessons for you and for your team.
And what's the leader's proactive role in fostering this learning culture for their team?
It's very active. The framework states that leaders are expected to actively provide training opportunities to team members to improve their skills and knowledge.
Not just waiting for people to ask.
No, proactively identifying existing skill gaps or future needs, and providing tailored solutions, training, coaching, mentoring, new experiences.
And the benefit of that investment.
The framework says this investment in growth not only benefits the individual, but also profoundly enriches the team's overall capabilities and adaptability. It makes the whole unit stronger, more resilient, more innovative.
There was something about daily practices mentioned earlier, too.
Yes, that's beautifully echoed in the Daily Practices section of Volume 3. Leaders are encouraged to cultivate a mindset where they genuinely wish for all individuals around them to develop skills, expand knowledge, and cultivate resilience. To actively envision themselves creating environments that inherently foster continuous learning for everyone.
Building a collective intelligence that's always evolving.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, finally, we arrive at the last principle in this chapter.
Yeah.
Principle 3.15, sustainable leadership.
Yes, and again, the framework invites us to think broadly here.
It's not just about environmental sustainability, like green initiatives.
That's certainly part of it and an important part. But the framework defines sustainable leadership much more broadly. It talks about fostering a skillful, effective, and sustainable approach to leadership itself.
Leadership that endures.
Exactly. Leading in a way that creates lasting positive impact without depleting crucial resources along the way. And those resources can be human, financial, or environmental.
So how does this translate into strategy?
It involves consciously embedding sustainability principles right into the heart of the strategic planning process.
Making it core, not an add-on.
Right. It's about ensuring that organizational growth and success does not come at the expense of environmental or social well-being. This means diligently assessing the potential long-term impacts, positive and negative, of all strategic decisions and actively working to minimize the negative ones.
And does this connect back to the leader's own well-being too, like a golden mean?
Absolutely. It circles back powerfully. The framework emphasizes that cultivating personal well-being, consistent self-care, managing energy, preventing burnout, these aren't optional luxuries for the leader. They are fundamental necessities.
Why necessities?
Because these practices underpin your mental and physical health. They allow leaders to sustain their impact over the long term, without succumbing to the cynicism or exhaustion that can derail even the most well-intentioned leader. It's about building a leadership practice that is durable, resilient, and continuously generative, not extractive.
So ultimately, this holistic approach to sustainable leadership, what's the bottom line?
The framework is unequivocally clear. It states that this approach is both a profound ethical imperative and a powerful strategic advantage.
Ethical and strategic.
Yes, it's about consciously aligning your strategic objectives and your daily operations with broader sustainable development goals, ensuring that your organization's success actually contributes positively to the world around it.
Building a legacy that truly endures.
That's it, a legacy that enriches not just the bottom line, but also the lives of your team members, your community, and yes, the planet itself.
And there we have it. Wow, that was a truly deep dive into the 15 foundational principles of aware leadership from Chapter 3.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We journeyed through that crucial inner work, mindful leadership, cultivating a clear mind, overcoming our own unskillfulness.
The essential starting point.
Then we explored how to lead with heart and ethical conviction, compassionate leadership, authenticity, generosity, and finding that dynamic balance with the golden leadership mean.
Leading from the core.
Then we shifted to driving collective impact, building supportive team environments, harnessing interconnectedness and team synergy, and the vital importance of inclusive leadership.
Bringing everyone along.
And we wrapped up with the wisdom needed to navigate challenges and sustain that impact, embracing and leading through change, understanding cause and effect, that interesting paradox of detachment and decisiveness, and finally, the enduring commitment to lifelong learning and sustainable leadership.
Phew. It's quite a list when you lay it all out.
It is. But the key thing, as we've heard, is that these aren't just 15 isolated concepts on a checklist.
Not at all. They form a cohesive, integrated, mutually reinforcing framework. They all work together.
Designed to empower conscious, effective, impactful leadership.
That's truly the key takeaway, I think. Aware leadership provides what the framework calls a secular, adaptable, and profoundly practical framework. It's designed to enhance your leadership capabilities at every single level.
How does it do that?
By systematically cultivating heightened self-awareness, fostering robust emotional intelligence, and consistently guiding you toward action that is mindful, ethical, and compassionate.
And the real transformation happens when?
Not just when you gain the information, but when these learnings are authentically integrated into your being. That's the phrase used. It's about truly embodying these principles in your daily leadership, not just understanding them intellectually.
So as you, our listener, reflect on this deep dive, it's important to remember what the framework says about the path of the aware leader.
Yes, that it's a deeply personal and continuous voyage of discovery and refinement.
A lifelong journey of learning, expanding your perspectives, and seeking wisdom. You're never really there. You're always growing, always evolving, always refining your impact.
Absolutely. So as we close out today, perhaps a final thought to consider.
Go for it.
Consider this. What leadership legacy are you actively building day by day by either embracing or perhaps neglecting these core principles we've discussed?
That's a provocative question.
And maybe more concretely, how might the consistent, conscious application of just one of these principles, perhaps starting with that simple mindful breathing exercise before your next tough meeting, or consciously choosing a moment of self-compassion when you stumble, or making an intentional act of generosity towards a team member, how might that one small shift transform your next challenging situation
Transform it from just a problem to be solved.
into a profound opportunity? An opportunity for growth and for lasting positive impact, not just for yourself, but potentially for your entire team.
That's a powerful note to end on. For more resources, for training programs to continue your invaluable journey as an aware leader, do visit the Aware Leadership website.
Keep exploring, keep practicing.
We look forward to diving deeper with you again next time.